And we have this just into CNN. Iran's parliament has passed a bill designating all US forces terrorists after Soleimani's killing by the US on Friday. Let's get more on all of this from CNN's Nick Robertson, who joins us from Riyadh. So let's look at that information just in, this designation from Iran's parliament, but also what the foreign minister there is saying about the fact that these US troops are not even wanted in the region. They're not necessarily going to force them out, but they're not wanted.
The revenge that the Iranians have been talking about for the death of Qasem Soleimani at the moment is translating itself into the isolation of the United States in the region, with the focus of getting as many US troops out of the region, specifically Iraq, but they would more broadly like to see them leave other countries as well. So this is the revenge at the moment that the killing of Qasem Soleimani has allowed the Iranians to sort of focus on. This seems to be their direction of travel. They've made it clear, their proxies have made it clear that any attacks will be on US military forces. That doesn't give a huge amount of relief for the United States allies in the region, because of the concerns that there could still be the potential for a trigger for a broader conflict. But certainly the United States allies in the region will be concerned if the United States draws down its forces significantly in the region. That's something that they look to as being a guarantor, a part of the stability and security within the region, particularly within Iraq. So these words from the Iranian foreign minister, although not surprising, are obviously going to now help shape the understanding for the United States and its allies, the direction of travel for Iran at the moment, Rosemary.
And talk to us about this designation in this bill in Iran, calling US forces terrorists. What are the consequences of that label?
Sure. I mean, the Iranians would love for that to gain broader traction, and that feeds into the isolation and demonization of US forces, which has been a theme of the Iranians for a long time. But it has a feel at the moment as well of something of a tit for tat with the United States, because the United States has designated so many people and groups in Iran as terrorist organizations that the Iranians have bridled against, you know, the whole time that President Trump has been sort of escalating up his maximum sanctions and isolation of Iran. So this does have a feel for tit for tat. The practical reality is that in a way, you know, it reinforces what the Iranians have been saying, that there will be a military-to-military response, and therefore this would give them, you know, what they might consider, or what their proxies might consider, political cover for killing US soldiers anywhere in the region at any point in time by designating them as terrorists. But it has a rhetoric feel that has a sort of a tit for tat sense to it as well. Again, this is in part in keeping with isolating and demonizing the United States. This is a moment in the region where Iran can capitalize on Qasem Soleimani's death, can capitalize on the fact that large numbers of people have come out on the streets in Iraq and in Iran. That not only tells, that sends a very big message to the peoples of those countries that support for Soleimani was big, and that anyone that actually opposed that support and opposed the government in Tehran opposes a large number of people on the streets. It amplifies that kind of message, and that's something that, you know, Iran will be very keen to exploit and is exploiting at this time.
All right, Nick Robertson, bring us the very latest details on those new developments coming into us at CNN. Joining us there from Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. Many thanks, Nick. Well, in Washington, the Trump administration is defending the strike, but officials are not speaking with one voice. The U.S. Defense Secretary contradicted President Donald Trump's threat to target Iranian cultural sites if Tehran retaliates. Then a letter from a top U.S. general leaked, appearing to indicate U.S. troops would withdraw from Iraq. Barbara Starr has more on the Pentagon's struggle to clarify what that letter actually means.
What it says is that U.S. troops are repositioning in Iraq, and that is true. But it also goes on to talk about future onward movement of U.S. troops, very strongly suggesting that U.S. troops are leaving Iraq. And what Defense Secretary Mark Esper told reporters today is no, that is not policy right now. And in fact, the Iraqi government has not yet officially asked U.S. troops to leave. So a lot of confusion, a letter that was poorly worded, and absolute insistence, at this time at least, from the highest levels of the Pentagon, that at least for now, U.S. troops are not leaving.
And Jumana Karache joins us now with the very latest from Baghdad. And Jumana, how would a letter like this mistakenly be leaked? Talk to us about how it ended up in the hands of Iraqis and then at that point, presumably, was leaked.
Well, Rosemary, we simply don't know how that happened. We just know that it appeared, it circulated amongst the Iraqi media here. It was being reported by Iraqi TV channels. It was breaking news here really late in the evening, and it was being phrased as the U.S. military has begun withdrawing, which obviously led to the scramble by U.S. officials to try and explain and clarify this letter. As you heard there from Barbara, U.S. officials here were saying, listen, this is not a withdrawal. This is absolutely not happening. This is just repositioning of troops, moving them around. They're remaining in the region. What this is just notifying the Iraqis of movements that are going to be happening, that this is standard. There was going to be a lot of chopper, helicopter movement in Baghdad, and they did not want, considering the current tensions, people to think that there are any additional troops coming in. So this was just notifying them of that. And then a short time later, we had senior top U.S. officials in the Pentagon also coming out to try and explain what had happened. The Joint Chiefs of Staff saying that this was an honest mistake, that this was a poorly worded letter, and it was not meant to be released. But no one has actually answered the question of why, in the first place, were there any indications in this letter that there would be some sort of a withdrawal? Why mention that? Why say it is on the table? What we know is U.S. officials here, U.S. officials in Washington, D.C., coming out and clearly saying that that is not happening, that U.S. troops are not planning at this point to withdraw from the country. And that could also have some reaction here, some implications, of course, when you have the Iraqis who have, over the past few days, made it clear. The political leadership here, the Prime Minister, his office, have come out and said that they are going with what Parliament had asked them to do. They're starting to work with the coalition governments to ask them at some point to withdraw their forces from here. We know they have spoken to a number of coalition governments. The Prime Minister here met, according to his office, with the U.S. ambassador in Baghdad. While they haven't notified the U.S. officially of this request for withdrawal, they said that they need to work together, according to that readout from the Prime Minister's office, on implementing this decision by the Iraqi parliament. And of course, an issue of concern when you have U.S. officials coming out and flat out denying that there's any possibility of withdrawal, that they are remaining here. The security implications here with the current threat level that we have, we've heard the threats coming from the Iranian-backed proxies on the ground in the past 48 hours or so. Some of their top leadership of the most powerful Iranian-backed paramilitary groups coming out and saying that if the United States does not withdraw immediately, as was decided by the Iraqi parliament, that they are going to be considered occupying forces and that they will be dealt with as such, indicating, hinting that they will go back to targeting these forces as they used to do back during the U.S. military occupation. Rosemary.
All right, Jumana Karache bringing us that live report from Baghdad. Many thanks.